The topic of my thesis is why or why not people with disabilities travel, constraints and tourism choice in accessible tourism. Society's approach is changing to focus on the inclusion of disabled people and is embodied in legislation to promote accessibility and participation. The economic contribution of people with disabilities to tourism has been well documented. Yet, despite such human rights and economic arguments, the tourism industry provides products and services that are far from sufficient in meeting the needs and the wants of people of disabilities. While the increasing pressures of highly competitive marketing environments make it imperative that managers understand consumer and consumer decision making. Therefore, this paper aims to demonstrate the necessity for tourism operators and managers to be keen to accessible tourism market and utilize labor constraint theory to decide accessible tourism activity preference and involvement so as to better facilitate this niche market. Here is the list of key topics and literature. Darcy, Cameron and Peck's article explores the concepts of accessible tourism and it links with triple bottom line sustainability. It addresses the gap between demand and supply side concerning accessible tourism and argues that accessible tourism infrastructure, products, and services can have a positive effect on business operations. B. Crawford and Shen's article reviews the main empirical findings of 2 decades surrounding the hierarchical leisure constraint theory and provides supportive evidence for the constructs of intrapersonal, interpersonal structural constraints that are consistent with decision-making process in leisure behavioral choice. This theory reflects a hierarchy of importance and further hierarchy of social privilege. The social cultural consideration can interpret how constraints are formed in travel decision-making for people with disabilities. Crawford and Stokowska review studies that examine the constraints faced by people with disabilities in their leisure participation within the social model of disability. Moreover, the study extends previous work by proposing a hierarchical model of constraints at the societal level and further proposes that simultaneous interventions at all levels are necessary. Goodall, Pottinger, Dixon, and Russell examine barriers preventing or limiting disabled people from visiting historic environments from the tourism service providers' viewpoint, as well as the viewpoint of disabled people. Darcy and Peck's review on perceptions of disability service provision among hotel managers, as well as the inadequate facilities and poor information provision documented, also showcase the interpersonal and structural constraints from a supply-side approach.